Welcome to Module 2, Crisis Management. In this chapter, we focus on crisis management planning, which is a critical capability for protecting organizations during disruptive events. Crisis management ensures that organizations are prepared to respond effectively when unexpected situations threaten people, operations, reputation, or assets. Proper planning enables leaders to make timely decisions, coordinate response actions, and maintain operational continuity. In this chapter, we will explore the key concepts and planning approaches that help organizations manage crises in a structured and effective way. Chapter 5 introduces a comprehensive framework for protecting people, information, and organizational capabilities during disruptive events. Crisis management goes beyond simply reacting to incidents. It requires preparation, structured processes, and strategic thinking. From the moment a crisis begins, organizations must activate response mechanisms, coordinate communication, and guide leadership decision-making. Effective crisis management planning ensures that the organization can respond quickly, maintain control, and recover from disruptions with minimal impact. Crisis management is the systematic process used to prepare for, respond to, and recover from events that threaten an organization. A key insight is that while security managers often focus on threats or hazards, crisis management is centered on the impact those events have on the organization. Crisis management begins when a disruptive event, whether physical or non-physical, affects the organization. At that point, security managers and leaders must activate measures to manage people, information, and organizational capabilities. Although the overall response flow may be similar across events, each crisis requires its own specific plan and approach. A crisis plan should be tailored to the specific needs and mission of the organization. However, most effective crisis plans include 5 core components. First is the crisis management team, which defines the roles, responsibilities, and membership of the team responsible for managing the crisis. Second is activation and escalation, which outlines the triggers, notification methods, and procedures for activating the crisis response. Third is command succession, ensuring that leadership roles are clearly defined if key decision makers become unavailable. Fourth is recovery logistics, which addresses facilities, equipment, and resources needed to sustain operations during recovery. Finally, crisis communications ensures clear and coordinated messaging to both internal and external audiences. The crisis plan must define the circumstances under which it is activated. Triggers may include imminent threats, ongoing incidents, or disruptions that significantly affect the organization. The first step is notification, which explains how team members are alerted once a crisis activation decision is made. Next is authority, which identifies who has the authority to declare a crisis. The plan must also define assembly, specifying when and how the crisis management team will convene, either physically or virtually. Finally, escalation procedures clarify when the situation becomes serious enough to expand the response and activate additional resources. Crisis recovery requires access to essential equipment and resources. Equipment categories include tools specifically designated for crisis events, as well as equipment obtained through commercial vendors or mutual aid agreements. Vehicle management is also critical. Responsibility for vehicles must be assigned to designated individuals during emergencies, and all vehicles should be inventoried in the emergency plan. Organizations may also establish advance agreements with leasing companies or emergency transportation providers to support evacuation, medical response, or rescue operations. When sourcing equipment or services from outside the organization, planners must address several critical procurement questions. First is what and how much, identifying the equipment or services required, quantities needed, and delivery timelines. Second is source reliability, ensuring suppliers have available resources, response capability, and dependable service. Third is cost and authority, including estimated costs and the appropriate procurement authority and documentation required during emergencies. Finally, maintenance and review ensures that equipment inventories are maintained, tested regularly, and verified for readiness. Crisis communications play a strategic and essential role in managing disruptive events. Effective communication supports organizational resilience, protects the organization's reputation, and helps maintain trust with stakeholders. Communication plans must align with broader business goals, such as brand protection, market stability, and regulatory compliance. Common communication channels include news releases, social media, websites, town halls, and media briefings. These tools help organizations communicate clearly and shape how they are perceived during and after a crisis. Effective crisis communication follows several essential principles. First are professional public relations standards, ensuring that communication reflects credibility, accuracy, and alignment with recognized PR practices. Second is tailored messaging, where communication is adapted to specific audiences, stakeholders, vendors, and customers with unique concerns. Third, communication must remain crisis-focused, concentrating on critical issues, disruptive events, and response efforts. Finally, crisis communication operates within a compressed time frame, requiring rapid response and quick decision-making while maintaining clarity and accuracy. One of the biggest challenges in crisis communications is time compression. In a crisis, there is rarely enough time to fully analyze events before messages must be delivered, as the impact and consequences escalate rapidly, making advanced preparation and planning extremely important. Another challenge is known as the detractor problem. All organizations have critics, and during a crisis these critics may already be prepared with negative narratives and ready to respond. For this reason, crisis communication plans must clearly define what will be said, how it will be communicated, and who will deliver the message. By acting quickly and communicating effectively, organizations can lead the narrative rather than reacting defensively. An effective crisis communication program relies on clearly defined team roles. The senior communications advisor oversees all communication functions and provides strategic guidance to senior leadership during critical decisions. The crisis communications team lead directs the communication team, leads the crisis communications plan, and ensures that communication deadlines and requirements are met. The crisis communications team develops and distributes tactical messages across multiple communication channels and maintains coordination with the crisis management team. Finally, incident command staff are assigned to support communications during large-scale disruptions or major public events. The Crisis Communications Plan, or CCP, translates the overall crisis management plan into specific communication actions for each potential crisis scenario. A typical CCP follows a structured process. It begins by identifying stakeholders, including internal and external audiences. Next, the organization identifies concerns, understanding the expectations and needs of each audience. Then the team develops key messages that communicate accurate and consistent information. After that, spokespeople are assigned to ensure messages are delivered clearly and consistently. Finally, appropriate communication tactics are selected, such as media briefings, social media updates, or internal notifications. The CCP should also include notification procedures and align with the organization's risk assessment process. Training and recovery communications are essential components of crisis preparedness. Communications training ensures that crisis communications team members and designated spokespeople receive regular instruction in messaging, media relations, and communication protocols. Training should also include participation in crisis management and incident command exercises. Equally important are recovery communications, which address the period after the immediate crisis response. During recovery, communication efforts shift toward rebuilding trust, informing stakeholders about progress, and supporting the organization's return to normal operations. During major incidents, organizations must address both family and victim support and media relations. Family and victim support involves designating a clear point of contact for affected individuals, establishing support centers away from media activity, and providing accurate updates to families and stakeholders. Coordination with organizations such as the Red Cross, FEMA, and public health agencies may also be required. At the same time, media relations must be carefully managed. Information should be released through designated sources, with trained spokespeople providing consistent and verified messages. Media briefings, controlled access to scenes, and proper documentation help maintain transparency while protecting sensitive information. Developing a crisis communications plan is only the first step. Organizations must also ensure the plan is communicated, tested, and exercised regularly. First, management involvement is essential. Senior leadership must participate in communication planning and decision-making to ensure alignment with organizational priorities. Second, plans must be tested through exercises and simulations. These activities allow teams to review procedures, practice response actions, and identify areas for improvement. Finally, organizations should maintain a lessons learned process. After exercises or real incidents, teams evaluate what worked well and update the plan to strengthen future responses. As we conclude this chapter on crisis management planning, let's review the key takeaways. First, plan for every crisis type. Different events require different responses, so organizations must tailor their plans for each scenario with clearly defined triggers and activation procedures. Second, prepare before the crisis. Crisis plans must be written, tested, trained, and regularly exercised. Preparation is what separates an effective response from a damaging one. Third, communications are strategic. Crisis communications protect organizational reputation and ensure that accurate, timely, and tailored information reaches the right audiences. Finally, remember that planning never stops. Crisis management planning requires continuous testing, review, training, and improvement. Thank you for watching this session. I hope this overview helps you better understand the principles of crisis management planning. I look forward to seeing you in the next chapter.